All right, folks, and I guess we got the verdict, folks. Charlie Kirk reports as about 1 minute ago, a Manhattan jury has found Trump guilty on all counts. All counts. Okay? So, what did we say here from the beginning? We said, well, it's all going to come down to who is on the jury. I mean, this is the weakest criminal case potentially in the history of criminal cases. And apparently, it was rigged. The truth is, to quote New Vegas, okay, the truth is the game was always rigged from the start. Colin Rugg reports Donald Trump found guilty on 34 of all 34 felony counts in the NYC hush money case. The jury deliberated for a total of 9.5 hours over 2 days before reaching a verdict. Sentencing is expected in the coming weeks, but it could be delayed. Each felony count that Trump was facing carries the possibility of up to 4 years in prison, but experts say that Merchan may choose house arrest and or probation for Trump. Trump is expected to appeal the conviction, which will likely take months. Or according to the New York Times, it is unlikely that the appeals process will be resolved before election day. And I'm trying to see here if we got any type of live announcement from the judge or jury, but I guess they are apparently too scared to show their faces after this sham of what the hell just happened. Unbelievable, folks. Absolutely unbelievable. So we started our stream at basically exactly the right time here. Okay, so look, I don't need to tell you anything that you don't already know. In fact, I will just leave this on the screen so that way anyone coming in right now is able to see what has happened. But folks, is anyone particularly surprised by this? No. We knew that this entire thing from the start was a complete disgrace to the criminal justice system, and I'd have to imagine this. Either one of two things happens. Either A, they deliberately chose who was going to be on this jury, and I think that's pretty understandable. That's pretty expected. But then also B, even if maybe there were people on this jury who are on our side, I mean, we saw this happen to an extent in the George Floyd situation, but I'd have to imagine here it was a lot worse. How much jury intimidation do you think went on here? Right? You'd have to imagine plenty. And so, some people were hoping for a hung jury, and I thought that might be the best case scenario we could get here. It's apparently not true, not happening. I don't want to underestimate the scope or the significance of this, okay? On one hand, it is absolutely true that this is a dark moment for the United States, okay? As transparent as it can get, this is weaponization. They are, obviously setting the precedent that the criminal justice system can be used against your political opponents in this way. However, on the other hand, okay, is it going to affect the election? Is it truly going to make the biggest difference here? Okay, we have been looking at a lot of polls since at the start of this criminal trial. The amount of people who sided against Trump in terms of it was exactly the same as it is now. In fact, some opinions in terms of the seriousness of this entire thing have dropped. Now, is it also true that the convicted felon label will hang over Trump's head? I'm sure that'll turn off some independents. But the thing is, for Democrats in this election, the idea they had that this may be their grand ace card against Donald Trump largely has failed, because even a lot of left-leaning media has pointed out the trial has not been strong. The entire thing looks highly, highly political, and so that's the situation we're in now. Now, the thing I'm very curious to find out or see is what do they end up doing with Donald Trump? Does Donald Trump go to jail? That's obviously going to be a very bad look for the country. Some people are talking about, as Colin Rugg here points out, each felony count carries that Merchan may choose house arrest and or probation for Donald Trump, and I don't know exactly what that means. House arrest, we know, would be highly political as well, right? So much for Joe Biden, by the way, folks, being able to do that presidential debate because they want to put Trump on house arrest. I don't know what's going to happen, folks. I'm going to try to scroll here to see what is going on, how this is all playing out, and this is... I don't know what to think of this. Frankly, I don't know what to think of this. We got reports a little bit before that Trump was actually smiling as a result of the verdict, and who knows, maybe that's him thinking, hey, they just handed me the election. It's truly hard to say, but yes, I do think this is the general sentiment. I will retweet this right here. Don't care, still voting Trump. Okay, and this is also very true. Dark MAGA it is, and that is indeed what's going to happen here, folks. I don't know what else to say, okay, other than the true jury, okay, the true verdict obviously comes in November, and we the people just have to be the ones to do it. That's just the honest truth here, okay, because there's no faith to be had in the criminal justice system, obviously. We can talk about the appeals process, and I'm sure that that's all coming, but appeal and where? Appeal where? In New York? Oh, it's going to go, folks. Here's the thing to consider as well, okay? It's going to go to an appeal in a New York Superior Court, which I would have to imagine is just as crooked, folks, just as corrupt and broken as the Judge Merchan here in Manhattan that it went to. Maybe it'll be a little better. Hey, it's not Manhattan, but still, okay? You want to talk about the judicial and jury intimidation that probably went on here? It's probably going to be the same up in the Superior Court. And so ultimately, I don't know what they're going to do to Trump. We'll have to find out. But regardless of whether they, they just kind of brush it off, they put him on probation or something, they put him on house arrest, they throw him in a New York federal penitentiary, whatever happens, again, folks, the ultimate verdict comes in November. And this is just all the more reason why you got to get out and vote. Okay? And that's true. That's true. Fuel to the fire, 100%. Absolutely the case. But yeah, if you are just tuning in, folks, if you are just joining us here, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts. Absolutely ridiculous. No faith to be had in the justice system. All 34 counts of the felonies they were trying to charge him with. Let's tune into Newsmax here, see if there's anything going on. But yeah, if you are just tuning in, just joining us, folks, be sure to leave a like on this stream, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and if you would like to super chat with your thoughts, feel free to do so. But let's tune in here and have a listen really quickly to Newsmax.
De La Garza, this is a historic day. We're here on Newsmax too. The former president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, has been found guilty on all 34 counts in that lower Manhattan courtroom. Ed Henry with Bianca De La Garza with you throughout the evening here. Bianca, your initial reaction.
Well, this was all very quickly turned from a jury going to be dismissed at 4:25 to, yes, they have reached a verdict. As we were on the air looking, as we have been customarily, at these doors. It's usually when Donald Trump comes out to address the nation, but in a stunning development, day two, at the end of their deliberation, the judge came in and said that they would not be dismissed. They would be instead reading a verdict. So it was a very quick turn around of events here. And again, a turn of events that many Americans, I think, are looking at in basically a lot of disbelief, because as you know, and what we've been reporting with the jury instructions from yesterday, the confusion this jury had led to what many had said all along, that this was a case that did not ultimately make any sense and had been cobbled together by a Soros-funded DA, Alvin Bragg, who campaigned to get Donald Trump. And indeed, tonight, guilty on all 34 counts. It looks like for now they think they have, but we know that there will be appeals and many grounds for appeals from Trump's team.
Absolutely. But likely, if it is overturned on appeal after the election, so the Democrats, to your point, Bianca, will get what they want, which is to try to tar Donald J. Trump as a convicted felon. I just want to show our viewers, as you can see, obviously, that is largely the team of former President Trump. Looks like maybe Caroline Levitt on the far left, Stephen Chung with his back to us. One of the attorneys is facing us. Boris Epstein's in the middle of that scrum. I saw Jason Miller a moment ago as you were speaking. I didn't want to interrupt you, Bianca. He was moving quickly across camera to the right, and I think he's in the far right, the top of his head there. There's various Secret Service that I've seen around the former president there as well, as if he's about to emerge to speak. I want to briefly tell you, Bianca, that on Truth Social.
Okay, folks, it sounds like, according to the reporting here, that Donald Trump will be emerging to speak very, very soon, or at least it's indicating like that. I guess the shot you're seeing right here is of Trump's legal team kind of standing around talking a little bit. Seems like he's going to be coming out in a second. So before we get to that, let's read here some of our super chats. Punch a Bear donates $10. Thank you very much. Says, Vince, I've been warning people that Biden may get reelected because of mail-in ballots and suburban white hoes who hate Trump and are angry that Roe v. Wade was overturned. So look, there is absolutely a path for Joe Biden to victory here. Oh, here comes Donald Trump. Okay, folks, shh, here he is.
It was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man, and it's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting. We'll fight till the end and we'll win, because our country's gone to hell. We don't have the same country anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble. But this was a rigged decision right from day one, with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case, never. And we will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
Why should voters vote for convicted felons?
Are you going to drop out? You believe in the rule of law? You trust the jury? Are you
Wow, pretty powerful there. This is
Incredible.
long from over.
Okay, so there you had it, folks. There were Donald Trump's comments basically just saying we're going to keep fighting, in very powerful words there. The real verdict is on November 5th. And that's very true, because now this is the card that the Democrats are going to try to use. Okay, so going into this election, how did it look? You know, the polls were favoring Donald Trump. The situation in the country does not favor Joe Biden. The economy, the border, foreign policy, you know, the wars going on in the world right now, Afghanistan, everything just was not favoring Joe Biden. So to them, what is this? Okay, this is their little, you know, ace card, right? To try to change the game. Oh, but Donald Trump's now a convicted felon. I think that question there from the reporter, as bad faith as it sounded, was a legitimate question in the sense of why should voters trust a convicted felon? That's the argument they're now going to try to make to the independents and the undecided voters in this country, many of whom are currently favoring Donald Trump, is that like, hey, he's a felon, so how can you vote for a felon? And it's absolutely true that under traditional political circumstances, yeah, convicted felons not going to win the presidency. However, Donald Trump is not a traditional political candidate. This is right. We are certainly in extraordinary times. And so that's what our side's going to have to hope to be able to use here, okay, is that, and we have to be able to make the case and try to prove to the pseudo-intellectual mid-wit suburban voter who's like, oh, but I trust the justice system. No, you can't trust the justice system, okay? The good news, I would say, is that because this case, this legal trial was so weak this entire time, maybe that does wake up some of the more naive Americans among us that like, hey, maybe the whole thing was a little bit broken. Maybe it was a little bit crooked. It was in Manhattan. I even heard, right, as you know, your cable news viewers may say, I even heard all the liberal outlets saying for a long time that there was no case. So where the heck did this come out of? This must be kind of corrupt, right? I don't know if I trust the justice system. That's what we have to be able to do. And so this is the situation we're in, right? The other side, they're throwing out everything, all precedents, all trust in the justice system, all trust in America's fabled institutions to try to stop one man who is, of course, our real president, Donald Trump. And we have to make sure it can't happen. Okay, that's all I can really say about it. All right, let's now get to our super chats that I know I missed. Feel free to send them if you have any thoughts of your own. But here also was Donald Trump's Truth Social post from earlier, where he seemed to, I guess, probably know or be able to infer the verdict early on. It says, my civil rights have been totally violated with this highly political, unconstitutional, and election interfering witch hunt. Our failing nation is being laughed at all over the world, which is, of course, 100% true. By the way, in other news, Donald Trump did also, I'll get to the super chats in a second, but earlier today, in anticipation of this verdict, the Trump campaign did release this ad basically showcasing how corrupt this trial was, and I think, frankly, it's pretty good political messaging, but I'll play that really quickly so you can hear it here for yourself. Here is Donald Trump's new campaign ad.
Thank you for joining us here today. Earlier this afternoon, Donald Trump was arraigned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts.
This case is an abomination. You know, it's obviously political. 7 years to try to come up with this case. They're just wrong on the law.
The only crime that Donald Trump is being prosecuted for is the crime of running for president.
Political persecution at the highest level.
They've quite frankly given up on trying to beat him at the polls. Either going to steal it or stop it by law firm.
A Democrat prosecutor elected on a Get Trump platform.
What's going on here is a disgusting disgrace. It is war on Trump. It is war on the Republican Party. And it is a war on the Republic.
This case is the weakest case I've seen in 60 years of teaching, practicing, and writing about criminal law.
And I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump.
This judge, I mean, you don't need a prosecutor if you have a judge like this. This judge is not on the level.
It's a terrible case, but the judge has been pretty much a rubber stamp on everything that Bragg has wanted to do.
They're perverting the system of justice. You know, that's where the danger lies. The corruption and subversion of our institutions by the left.
This is the Democrats' entire strategy, to confine President Trump to a dirty criminal courtroom and keep him off the campaign trail where he can bring his winning message to voters across this country.
New York has become a legal banana republic. They are so determined to get Donald Trump.
Look, convicting Donald Trump, that's all they have.
I think they have no cards, and they're depending upon Trump getting convicted.
That Trump train doesn't show any signs of slowing down.
The only verdict that matters is the verdict at the ballot box.
"100%. The only verdict that matters is the verdict at the ballot box." And look, folks, thus far, nothing has worked for the Biden campaign, right? Everything they've been trying to throw out there to boost their poll numbers has only sunken his poll numbers, right? So they tried this different attack. They tried Bidenomics. They've tried everything. They're trying to run all these different stories on Trump. Just hasn't worked. And you saw over the past couple months, even when Biden got his brief surge in the polls, Trump takes the lead back, and now it's expanding. He now has a historic margin among Gen Z. He leads by 10 with independents, according to NPR. So this is the new strategy that they're going to try to pull out. It's the most extreme one thus far. Will it work? I hope not. Right? And I think that's why we have to make sure it doesn't work, right? Don't let them get away with this. Don't let them win at that game. But okay, folks, let's get to our super chats here, because I know we got a handful. Again, folks, feel free to super chat if you want to share your thoughts with everyone on the verdict. Again, folks, Donald Trump found guilty on all 34 counts in a very hasty and quick jury deliberation, which I think that tells you a lot about who was on the jury and the instructions that were given by the judge. It was all a sham. We're not surprised by this, but It's a crazy day for the country for sure. Okay, as I was reading before, Punch a Bear for $10 says, Vince, I've been warning people that Biden may get reelected because of the mail-in ballots and the suburban white hoes who hate Trump and are angry that Roe v. Wade was overturned. And yeah, this is true, right? This is, if Joe Biden does pull it off, that's his path to victory. I'm not saying he's favored to do it, but we should also, never get too cocky, never get too arrogant. We should also totally acknowledge that Biden victory is possible in November, right? Don't have the mentality that the thing is a done deal. And surely the convicted felon label over Trump's head, I mean, I don't know if it's going to work 100%. It doesn't work for me. It might work for some people. Who knows? But that's another thing that they're throwing out here, right? Because I think they figured out that all of the normal attacks against Trump over the past 8 years, they've all fallen short. All the, Trump said this. Hey, look, Access Hollywood tape you might have seen today. Now they're trying to say there's a secret video of Trump saying the N-word, even though no one has found that video. None of this stuff is working. So now they're trying to escalate it, right? And, not to fearmonger, not to encourage or spread anything, but when or if we get to the point where the criminal trials and convictions don't work against Donald Trump, what are they going to try next? Well, I'm only here to speculate about that, and I'm not here to encourage it at all, but something to think about. Okay, Punch a Bear for $5 says, I've been warning people that the same way Corey Feldman warned people about PDF file Elia in Hollywood. Thank you for the $5, Punch a Bear. I appreciate the support. Volbill99 says, dark day in America. Honestly, is Fleet true verdict comes out on November 5th, I assume you're saying, but Tennessee will beat Florida. All right, we'll have to see about that, buddy. I mean, listen. I know you guys did in last year, but I mean, largely speaking, our program still owns your program, okay? That's true. Look at the 21st century record. But we'll have to see what happens next year this year in Neyland. But I appreciate the emphasis. That actually does demonstrate a great point, though. Because how many Americans, folks, truly care about this verdict? That's the thing. They were hoping that this would be the biggest game changer in the world. Oh, my gosh, Trump's a convicted felon. That's going to turn off all the voters. How many people care? How many people truly care? How many people were even following this verdict outside of the highly political people? I mean, I do political commentary for a living, and frankly, I followed bits and pieces of it, but I wasn't glued to the TV watching the trial. Not a lot of people were. So with that said, how much is the verdict in that case going to impact people? Well, you can make two cases. First of all, you can make the case that if they never cared about the trial itself, they won't care about the verdict. And I hope that's where most people go with this, because ultimately, if independent voters look at this and just say they don't care, good enough for me. But the other side of this, and I hope this is not true, is they didn't follow the trial at all. But when the verdict comes out, all of a sudden they're like, oh, must be convicted felon. I didn't watch the trial. I don't know how corrupt it really was. So I'm just going to go with the idea that Trump committed all these crimes, right? So there's that angle to it too. We'll have to see what happens. I guess it'll be interesting to see with political polling of the election over the next month, where that heads, right? Do you see a Trump drop off, or do you see a huge Trump boost because he becomes a martyr to the people? I can't predict that. To be honest with you, I can't predict that, because sometimes it's just hard to tell how people outside of our circle, outside of our echo chamber will truly feel about it. My instinct is that the people in the middle, the swing voters, the undecideds, they won't really care. Democrats will be more energetic because they'll be like, hey, look, convicted felon. And the Republicans will be more energetic because we'll say, hey, look, they're prosecuting Trump. Trump is a martyr to us now. But it's going to be hard to tell, right? What actually is going to come out of this? Again, we will just have to wait and see over the next month how this all impacts public perception. Okay, this is certainly a new weapon that the Democrats have. The question is it going to be an effective weapon? And is it, this is the case I guess I would make to the independent voter is, okay, so a highly political court said Trump is a felon. Who the heck actually cares? I think personally I care because it's a dark day for the country, but speaking purely in terms of your decision into the election, does that outweigh immigration? Does that outweigh the economy? Does that outweigh the culture war, right? All of the bad things that Joe Biden has done to this country and to the world as well. Does that outweigh nuclear war, World War III, America getting into new conflicts? Because if that's what the election is about, if the election is about the issues to the minds of voters, it's a done deal for Donald Trump. And I don't just say that because I lean conservative or whatever. I say that because that is what the data shows. Joe Biden is underwater with Americans on all sides on every single actual issue of substance besides arguably abortion. But we know that Trump has been trying to make the election not about abortion anyway, right? But obviously, if they can try to turn this into an election about, oh, Trump's a criminal, maybe that'll do something for them. But again, hard to tell. I wouldn't guarantee it. And, I'm hoping it doesn't work for them is what I'll have to say about that. But thanks, folks, for the super chats. Crazy day. Again, if you are just joining us, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts by the New York criminal court. Okay. And Courage says it's one thing to be found guilty on some or most charges, but all charges, that's sketchy and corrupt as hell, like blatantly. And that's totally true. And I hope maybe people look at that and say, well, it really couldn't have been that fair. Really? He's guilty of all 34 crimes? That doesn't sound right to me. So, this is what I'm hoping, the path we head down here, okay, is that people look at it and they truly just don't really care. But yeah, I see these liberals in the chat, all you people, oh yeah, have your laugh now, right? Oh, Trump got convicted. All right, let's come back on November 6th and, we'll see who's laughing then, is all I really have to say about it, okay? And they're going to use this as their opportunity to dunk on people and say all this stuff. In fact, I'm sure if I scroll Twitter right now, I'll find some of them. Let's see if any of them are here. Well, unfortunately, folks, I do not follow enough liberals on Twitter to really give you an idea. So I don't know what Harry or Victor Shi or all these other characters are saying about it. But let me see here. Let's tune into Newsmax here and see what's going on.
Always mistakenly believed he would never face consequences for breaking the law for his own personal gain. But today's verdict does not change the fact that the American people face a simple reality. They continue on. I will go through it a little bit quicker here to skip ahead, where they say the threat Trump poses to our democracy has never been greater. He's running an increasingly unhinged campaign of revenge and retribution. Sorry to jump in. I just wanted to get that out there as well as we kind of assess this. Yeah. The tone and the tenor of this nation here, where you have, a Biden-Harris campaign freely responding and calling the threat to democracy here, Donald Trump again.
Well, this is such a shocking thing to hear. And when people talk about Biden actually commenting on the verdict, the first thing I thought is, why would you do that? Why would you want to insert yourself in this particular situation? It only suggests that you were intimately involved with this particular case with your agents from the DOJ, your DOJ, who actually sicked this prosecutor against Trump for the purpose of making sure that he didn't win this election one way or the other, or to hobble him. That is a shocking thing to hear. The other thing is that from a political point of view, from a popularity point of view, I think that's only going to inure to the benefit of Trump. This two-tiered system of justice, I like the way that Trump responded to it. I didn't have for a moment a concern for him being weak or shy about this or feeling somehow intimidated in any way whatsoever. He's only going to show he's very resolute. He's going to fight this. He will not go to prison. They're not going to be able to do that while he's still going through the appeal process. And the question is, how quickly will the appeal process go? So, yes, the Biden team will go ahead and tout that he's a convicted felon at this point, and that's what they want to parlay. But it probably won't work at the end of the day. It may actually boomerang on them.
No doubt about it. It's boomerang so far in the polls anyway, and with the fundraising for the former president, but we'll watch it closely. Brock, Lori, we appreciate your insight.
That's another great point, too. In regards, I guess, to the appeal process is, let's be honest. If they wanted to, if this was someone they were trying to do in their favor, they could absolutely move the appeal to before the election. But let's be real, okay? We know what's going to happen. They're going to make the appeal take so long that it's just way after the election by the time it's scheduled. And then regardless of what actually happens in the appeal, they can run in the election saying, Donald Trump is a felon. Again, it's just a question of if it's really going to work, right? Is it really going to work? And I'll say this, any other political figure in the history of the United States, it would work, at least prior to 2024. But Donald Trump's different. Right? He's a different guy. He's just built different. He's the only person in American politics who could be convicted in a criminal court as a felon and become stronger because of it, become popular because of it. So I'm hoping that's what happens here. Truly, I'm hoping that's what happens here. Okay, I'm trying to scroll here on Twitter to gauge some of the left-wing reactions to all of this. And as you can see, the Biden characters like Harry Sisson are just having a field day, right? Okay. Just posting the memes. Yeah, get your fun out right now, right? Get your laughs in, okay? This is the liberal moment to get their dunks in again, folks. Our laughter, our victory is on November 5th. But I guess apparently, according to Harry Sisson, this is the scene currently outside of the courthouse with Trump supporters.
Motherfuckers! These are all pieces of shit. Americans you're looking at right here.
That's how I feel as well, to tell you the truth. I think that's a pretty sane New Yorker reaction right there. I mean, that is 100% true and on the money. But yeah, folks, okay, let's get to our super chats. I want to hear some of your guys' thoughts on this because I don't have much else to say. Okay, I say let them get their moment in and our moments in November, but let's see here. Chaotic Antifreeze says, should we revert the government back to the scale it was in 1789, perhaps establish some form of paleo-libertarianism? Chaotic Antifreeze, thank you for the $5. I mean, it would be nice. Here's what I would say. It would be nice. It would be really nice. But at the same time, could the country handle that today with the global economy and people in general not having the same morals and values and social trust that they did in, say, 1789? I mean, John Adams did say what? Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. Are the American people en masse as moral and religious as they were back then? Who knows? So I don't know if it's realistic to say 1789 levels of small government these days, but I certainly think that the scale of the federal government needs to be slashed massively, right? I think if we could even somehow get back to pre-1964 or pre-1933 federal government, I mean, that would be more than enough, right? But as we know, the story in America usually is that the government just gets bigger and the entitlements grow and nobody wants to cut entitlements because it's highly unpopular. And so, who knows if any of that's realistic. But, I think most people in general do agree outside of the hard left that, the federal government is a tad bit bloated these days. So we'll have to, I think we do what we can. We do what we can. And it's very hard, There really is a fourth branch of government these days. We're taught in school, you have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. No, there's a fourth. The bureaucracy is its own arm of government, and in some ways, they're more powerful than the other three. And how do you really cut it? How do you really get rid of it? Who knows? Who knows? It's a lot easier said than done, even for someone who wants to, because these people in Congress, they're bought out by the bureaucracy, and you got the courts that defend the bureaucracy. It's just a mess. It really is just a mess. But, I guess I understand the sentiment, though, is what I would say. Okay, Brandon Crespin for $5 says, like DJ Academics said, Trump getting convicted as a felon for paying a porn star, aka a side chick, makes me want to vote for him even more. Not gonna lie. Thank you for the $5, Brendan Crespin. I mean, I think that's how, honestly, a lot of American people feel. Maybe not that they want to vote for him more, but that it's a sex case regarding Donald Trump, a former New York playboy. And no, not a lot of people are swayed either way by whether the affair happened and what happened in regards to it. And so, generally speaking, sex cases are not actually super popular in American politics. I mean, sometimes, it's a really bad one. I don't know, politician gets caught with child pornography. Okay, that's a little different. But in regards to, like, for instance, Bill Clinton back in the day, you saw how that went, right? That actually was not popular, right? A lot of Americans thought it was kind of petty or frivolous. It turns out a lot of people, at least these days, they're not interested by that stuff. They don't care about what the private sex lives are of, most people in our country these days, but especially politicians. But, if that's what happened to Bill Clinton back in the day and that made him more popular, you think now to 2024 and Donald Trump, a former New York playboy, having an affair with a porn star. Do I endorse that behavior morally? No, but does anyone really deep down care about it? Is anyone like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened? Like, folks, this isn't the 1980s anymore. It's not the 1960s. Like, does it really matter to people these days? And maybe someone can make a case that it should matter, but if it's going to matter, it needs to matter both ways, and we know it doesn't matter both ways, okay? We can fully imagine that the sex lives of the other side are 1,000 times more perverted if we want to do that game with each other, and most people just don't want to go there. So, ultimately, does this really matter to people? I think in many ways it doesn't. I think if anything, the only thing they're trying to use, and by the way, the Stormy Daniels thing back in the day didn't sway opinion a lot because everyone was like, okay, and the big thing I think in this case is that convicted felon label. Will that make a difference? That's what they're trying to use. They're not going to focus on Stormy Daniels. They're not going to focus on the porn star part or the sex life part because they know that stuff just doesn't work anymore, but maybe they can focus on the felon part. I don't know, but yeah, you are right in general. These kind of sex scandals in American politics, when the other side tries to make way too big a deal out of it, it actually usually doesn't go well for the other side. You saw that in the Clinton case, and it might be even more true here. Okay. Omar for $2 says, our boy got street cred now. I mean, that is how people feel. That is how a lot of people are going to feel, In fact, I was, I'll let you in on a little private conversation here. So I was on the phone the other day where a family friend was there, okay? And just to give you a context of who this family friend is, he's not a Republican, at least historically, okay? He's a lifelong Democrat, but he kind of leans more socially conservative, I guess. So he thinks the woke's too far, whatever. Sort of a Bill Maher fan. Now kind of saying he doesn't want to vote for Biden. He might vote Trump. He's on the fence about it. So honestly, like as pure an independent voter, I guess, these days as you could get. He said, and I'm not going to, out who this guy is, but what he said? He said, honestly, Donald Trump, a New York playboy, like sleeping with a porn star at a golf tournament, he said on the phone, I would be disappointed in him if he didn't do that, right? And, that's obviously not me, like, endorsing that type of behavior as a human being, but, there is something to be said. Like, is anyone, oh my gosh, Donald Trump had an affair with a porn star? Like, so it's just true. It's just true. And I think the polls are showing that is, trying to drag him through this, trying to embarrass him for his private life or something like that. It's not popular with people. People are just kind of put off by it, I guess you could say. And, I'm hoping that's kind of where I guess this entire thing ends up going. But yeah, folks, if you are just tuning in, if you are just joining us, yes, Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 criminal counts over in New York. And I'll have to see what happens next. I'm not sure exactly when the sentencing is going to be, or even if they're even going to try to sentence him at all. But just to recap for people who have just joined us, some are spreading the possibility of maybe house arrest from the judge or something like that, or probation or whatever. So, are they going to try to use this to stop him from being able to campaign or debate Joe Biden? Again, folks, we'll have to see what happens in that regard, but I wouldn't be surprised is what I'll say. I certainly wouldn't be surprised. But all right, folks, any last super chats you have, feel free to send them in now, because I don't really have much else to say. This is a dark day for our republic, but we will power through. And again, the real verdict is in November. Okay, so what even are the charges, says Mad for Song. There's a bunch regarding falsification of business records, which is not a felony actually in New York. This is the first time they're even, charging it as a felony. It's usually a misdemeanor, but they changed the classification of this entire crime just to go after Donald Trump. So that's one of them. The other one is intent to defraud, which they never proved, but whatever. And I forget what the third one is, if someone can remind me there of that. Johnny Smith says, last I checked, the judge says the jury doesn't have to agree on all the crimes. It could just be 4 people agree on one thing and it'll fly even if the other 8 don't agree. Well, that is true in this case, Johnny Smith. But it sounds to me, based on the fact that the jury deliberated so fast, that the whole jury just agreed that he was guilty. That seems to be the indication of what happened. I don't know for sure. Right. But just judging by how fast the conviction came in and the decision came in, the verdict, it sounds like the jury was just unanimous from the start. This is Manhattan after all. We know the jury selection process was pretty crooked and corrupt. That seemed obvious from the start. So it seems like that's probably what happened, just in general. So they did try to change it around, and the judge did give very confusing instructions to make sure they got a conviction. But truly, if it took this fast, I think the jury had their minds made up from the start. Or the other possibility is a lot of jury intimidation certainly went on here, and that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. I kind of suspected that. We saw that in the George Floyd case, 100%. I'm sure it happened here. Okay, would not be surprised at all, right? So there you go. The system is rigged. This is true. Let's go, Brandon. Oh, yeah. By the way, he's totally not involved in this, right? This is totally an independent judge and jury that happened. Totally. 100%. Michael Knowles just compared this to Rome on IG. Well, that's interesting. I'd have to hear what the analogy is there. I think the question is, what will Trump do next? Well, he's going to try to appeal. We'll have to see when the sentencing is. But I think if you're Donald Trump, now that you're out of court, just get back to the campaign trail, right? And I wouldn't suggest pretending like nothing happened. I mean, you have to push back on the narrative. But at the same time, the narrative is simple, right? They are after you. They are after me because I am standing for you, And you pointed out, right? When a president has a terrible economy, worst border in the history of the United States, destructive, terrible foreign policy, everything is falling apart, world stage and domestically, what other choice would he maybe have besides, let's throw in a few criminal trials because we have no other case? I think you make that case clearly to the American people, it brushes off the convicted felon label, at least as much as you're going to get, right? But we'll just have to see. Haley Carmen says they definitely have their minds already made up. So gross to watch this crooked system. It only solidifies this in my mind. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, if this is the same place that... think back to the E. Jean Carroll case, right? What happened in the E. Jean Carroll case? And I know that was in New York. I believe, though, that was also in Manhattan. So what took place there was a woman accused Trump of sexual assault, like 20 years after it allegedly happened. And then Donald Trump responds by saying the woman is a liar. Okay? That's what he said in response. Now, a criminal court, for obvious reasons, never found Donald Trump guilty of that sexual assault, but a civil court still nonetheless decided that by saying that that woman was a liar, he was guilty of defamation. He was liable for defamation. And they made him pay, what was the original number? $400 million in damages? The whole thing is totally unbelievable and ridiculous, right? Never found guilty of this sexual assault, but apparently by publicly saying that the woman is lying, that means you're defaming her, even though she's the one defaming you, right? Very obviously there. But then also on top of that, apparently you responding by saying she's a liar is somehow liable for $400 million in damages. How does that even justify? How does that even make a lick of sense? E. Jean Carroll was never worth $400 million. How did what Donald Trump said in response equate to anywhere close to $400 million in damages? So that case in itself was ridiculous enough to begin with. But I think when you consider, hey, it's a civil court, but very obviously it seems if that's how the political system, the political judicial system, I should say, was operating in this district in Manhattan, then yeah, should we be surprised in that context that this is the verdict in Manhattan in the criminal case? I don't think so whatsoever. But okay, folks, again, last call for any super chats. I will end the stream here in a couple of minutes, but to recap, Donald Trump found guilty. He, seems like he's just going to be hitting the campaign trail back once again. Sentencing expected in the coming weeks. What are they going to do there? Hard to say, truly. I don't know. Will they go so far as to put Donald Trump in jail? My instinct is no, just because, hey, even they know that would be a stupid idea to go all the way there. But with this Judge Merchan guy, I mean, he's the one doing the sentencing. I mean, honestly, who knows, right? I could totally see them trying to do that or, whatever. So we'll have to see what happens in that regard. But yeah, folks, okay, let's see. If we got no other super chats, then I will call it a stream here. Just wanted to kind of catch the reaction live of this verdict, folks. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy day for America. But again, just all the more reason why you got to vote in November. Okay, that said, folks, thanks for tuning in. We should probably have a vid. I might just cut up the reaction, and if not, I'll, maybe post a video about this. But yeah, there's the verdict in the Donald Trump trial. Bad day for our country. The last laugh, though, for us comes on November 5th. That said, folks, be sure to leave a like on this stream. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you soon. It is the MAGA hat stays on. Actually, wait, I have one right here. So true. Okay, see you guys later.